I'm sensitive, recovering drug addict, alcoholic. So I'm always going to take stuff personally, but to recognize when I'm doing it and to be able to say, oh, well, maybe if you don't do, you know what I mean? If I can get that little margin around me and kind of reel in the net, that's always good for me. Wellness for me is being aware of myself and my feelings and knowing what I need to do to kind of maintain that. I feel it's important to have good sober people in my life that I can bounce ideas off of. Well, that's why they say you have to be kind to yourself and be empathetic with yourself in the process a little bit too, because everybody tends to beat themselves up. Being aware and allowing myself to be human is pretty important aspect too, you know. Just maintaining sobriety doesn't change life. You have to go through ups and downs. There's things that go on that you have to deal with, and that can be difficult, and maybe even more so difficult for me sober than it was before. I masked and buried stuff, and I didn't really ever learn how to process that kind of stuff, you know?
Welcome to the Collaborative Resource Hub by Wellness Provisions. We're bridging the gap between mental health, wellness, and rock and roll. I'm Amy McBride, owner of Wellness Provisions, the most badass wellness business. Hey, are you feeling a little stuck in life? I offer wellness coaching sessions. Book a session with me if you're seeking to get healthy and ahead. Sessions are available worldwide. And check this out. Wellness Provisions supplies rock and rollers with high-quality supplements. We've simplified your shopping experience and given you a trustworthy place to go where you can essentially shop blindfolded. And did you know all our Collaborative Resource Hub interviews air on YouTube as well as all major podcast platforms? Subscribe to stay in the loop. Go immerse yourself in the full Collaborative Resource Hub experience over on our website. You'll have access to helpful resources that will inspire and educate you. So let's inspire each other. If that guy did it, so can you. Last but not least, my legal disclaimer. Nothing in this interview or the Collaborative Resource Hub substitutes medical advice. Please connect with your GP if you need medical guidance. Lenny, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm doing well, Amy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. I was listening to like a bunch of your music yesterday to get ready and stuff. And I like your sound. It's chill, but it's like, it still has rock and roll, I love it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm older guy, so chill and rock and roll is kind of in there, right?
So that's actually kind of like the first thing I like to ask people, which we just got into. But if you had to describe the sound of your music to someone who hasn't heard you before, what would you say like sonically to describe it?
Geez, I don't know. I mean, I guess people want to categorize. I think I take a little bit of stuff I try and take a little bit of something from everything, you know. And so I did that in previous bands and stuff like that. But it's rock and it's folk and it's edgy and it's sad and it's it's dad rock probably now in these days.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Who knows? But it's good, and that's all that matters.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So that's enough about music, because that's, I don't talk about music to people with all the records behind me. No. Wellness. What does wellness mean to you?
Oh, geez. Well, coming from alcoholic, recovering alcoholic drug addict kind of background, there's some daily things that I try and do that maintaining that is first and paramount to me. You know what I mean? I've found coming up on 7 years, so I've kind of found some things that work for me, and I kind of try and adhere to that stuff. And that kind of has to be first and foremost for me, because without that, then the rest kind of comes apart a little bit, and that's usually not good for somebody that's addicted to drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
Or anything for that matter. And I find like now 7 years, I probably have it. I never understood that when I first started going and looking into that, but I have kind of the isms that it include a lot of other aspects of my life. So I try and keep all of that stuff, be aware of that stuff when it crops up, and do my best to kind of reach out to somebody else and bounce ideas and things of that nature. Just it's wellness is for me is being aware of myself and my feelings and knowing what I need to do to kind of maintain that.
Yes. I love that. And that's it. Because there's a lot of people who are I don't know. In my head I have this visual of like a path, and we're all walking the same path, and some people are farther ahead than others, and I feel like people who are a little farther back are still scared to kind of tap into themselves and really cultivate that awareness and figure out like what it is they truly need and be honest with themselves. So
Well, it takes a little time, I think, too. You know what I mean? It really does. It's that there's a lot of cliche sayings that people will hear if you're in that embedded in the, like a 12-step kind of community type of thing. But really, the more you become aware of the longer I am, the more those things start to make a little sense to me. You know what I mean? And it doesn't sound like it does, but just give yourself a chance and give yourself some time, and then in that you gain perspective.
yeah. So did you have sort of was there like a specific like tipping point kind of moment where you were like, all right, I gotta get myself together, or what?
Oh yeah, yeah. For me, and it's funny because for me it was rather drastic. I've heard so many people tell stories and all of that. My first, because I functioned for a long, long time in the woods and kind of not thinking that everybody else was doing the same type of thing. It didn't really occur. I mean, I knew deep down inside maybe, but I was not ready to kind of come to terms because I operated all right in that realm.
Yeah.
But the first tour I had of Europe with a band that I was in at the time, I had a significant kind of mental break. Wound up, it was like they took me off the tour 10 days into the tour, put me into a hospital. It was a long, long, I wound up 24 or 36 hours on my own in France, kind of wandering around. Subsequently, 12 days in a mental facility in France. And through the help of my wife and some friends, some other friends in the music community, they enlisted some help to get me back home. But then it was a real Godsmack. It wasn't too easy to tell myself I didn't have a problem, because my mind was really fragmented. I was a nutcase, you know what I mean? I was just jello. So,
Yeah.
and I needed that. Like some people, people talk about bottoms. That's what I needed. I'll always remember. I don't think God forbid I ever forget that experience.
Yeah. So what kind of stuff, like once you got back to the States, what was like paramount for you really getting yourself, back on track?
Well, it was at that time it was combined effort. You know what I mean? With the facility and the organization that I was with was a place called Right Turn. So that they were a treatment center. Was an outpatient thing that I did, 30-day outpatient, but they have experts, psychiatrists, everybody else in the field. So there was initially there was some medication to kind of get me level, and the meetings and kind of that kind of stuff. The external stuff was kind of getting involved in AA and looking at that side of things, which Right Turn was really cool because they were open to all kinds of things. So they had a community-based meeting, but they didn't really get into too much of the real the meat and potatoes kind of aspect of it. You know what I mean? Just people being in touch. So it kind of introduced you to it in a little gentler way, I guess.
Yeah. Dipping your toe in the idea of like having that support kind of group thing.
Yeah, I mean, that can be scary too. That can be a scary aspect of it. You know what I mean? I was so paranoid when I got back from that initial experience. I couldn't even speak to my wife or anybody, even people close to me. So it's important to kind of slowly kind of get to feel more comfortable around people. It was for me, at least.
Yeah. What other kind of stuff, I guess, like sort of gradually, over the years have you picked up, that kind of does make up that foundation for your daily, mental wellness and routine stuff?
Well, I mean, in regards to the addictive side of things and all that, it's I don't do a lot of meetings. I maybe do one meeting a week now, which a lot of people wouldn't think is good, but for me it works. And then it's really primarily kind of staying in touch with other sober folks and bouncing stuff like that, and never kind of uh getting too far away from that lifeline, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel it's important to have good sober people in my life that I can bounce ideas off of.
Yeah, you need that just that sounding board and that a healthy environment around you.
Yeah, well, like I say, I went a long time misinformed by the misinformed. So you know what I mean. It's nice to have. It's nice, and that doesn't mean that I don't mean that as a dig to anybody else. Really, you know what I mean. It's just people that have experienced the same kind of thing are good people to kind of bounce ideas off of.
Yeah. And like they say too, you want to be like you want to be like the dumbest person in the room. You want to be surrounded by people far more intelligent than you or motivated than you so that like pushes you in that direction.
I mean, remain teachable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a hard thing to do for anybody, really. You know what I mean? We all think we know. So, but
Yeah.
that too, I think, is a very important aspect of staying in touch with folks. You know what I mean? Being right sized by folks that can point out, because we don't want to look at our character defects. The first thing we do is kind of erase those in our mind, and they're there. And sometimes you need somebody that's a little further out than your own head to point that stuff out to you.
Yeah. And it's I mean, it's being able to separate from, your ego and all that. And I was talking with a buddy like who's trying to clean himself up right now, and he hates all the bad things in him, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, but it's still, all of it is you. It's the whole like yin yang thing, darkness and light, like all of it makes you. And it's figuring out how to have that relationship and know that like the bad things don't define you,
Right.
but they are still part of you. And what do you do with it now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that can be tough too in early going, you know what I mean? Because it seems to me, really, with that mental break, it really seemed like good and evil had a very definitive line, you know what I mean? And that was scary. I mean, that's what I needed. That was really frightening, because then that was what well, they talk about surrender. I never was very good at surrendering, but I realized at one point that whatever it was that was manifesting was something that I certainly didn't have the power to combat,
Mm-hmm.
and that required some intervention.
Yeah.
Something that did have the ability to squash that.
Yeah. What kind of stuff like these days, or even a few years ago, do you do to help balance your stress levels so that you keep yourself feeling grounded?
Uh, well, every kind of form or aspect that I can get into meditatively. I do some quiet meditation in the morning by myself. Usually there's a TV on in the house anyway for the animals or whatever. I'll usually turn the volume down on that and kind of just sit and try and start my day with a little quiet, focus on breathing and not too much beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
Slow myself. You know what I mean? You get up in the morning and everything wants to go. Your mind just goes. So I try and do that. First and foremost, and then there's a lot of self-help kind of audiobooks that I try and listen to. If then my day starts, I have a cup of coffee and I'm out on the road or something, I'll try and not go to whatever is on the news or whatever and get my mind going more and more. I'll listen to, I mean, there's so many great books. There's a book that I got when I was losing my stuff in Europe. One of the guys that was in one of the touring bands gave me a book by a woman, Shaki Guan. It's called Creative Visualization. And then there's a book by Don Miguel Ruiz that the
Core agreements.
Yeah, that one is like I always space on it and I can never remember all the agreements, but that one's so applicable. Like if I can set my day, even if it's just listening to his voice tell me outline those four things,
Yeah.
then somehow it gets supplanted, and I don't know. I'm sensitive, recovering drug addict, alcoholic, so I'm always going to take stuff personally. But to recognize when I'm doing it, and to be able to say, oh well, maybe if you don't do, you know what I mean. If I can get that little little margin around me and kind of reel in the net, that's always good for me.
Yeah. And I think also is just that gap between like, you know, so that you don't react as quickly to things too, giving yourself that space to process.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it can feel like, everything's coming at you personally, and it's probably not, but
Yeah.
then also having that time to not explode or implode
Yeah,
either.
well, that's like you said too. A lot of that is ego driven, right? Once you get into that, well, it's a personal affront. Also, I would say like another way to kind of combat that kind of stuff is just simple altruistic kind of stuff. Whether you don't even have to really get too deep into it. If you just see somebody drop their hat and you go over and help and try and pick up their hat, I'm not looking for a pat on the back from the person, but it tends to get me out of my own way a little bit. Simple little things like hold a door for somebody.
Yeah, totally. It's all those, it's like small wins for just feeling good about yourself, that like you're contributing to like other people, and yeah, it feels awesome. So
It
it's like a
does, and
win-win for everybody.
maybe it cancels out when you're running down the street with a machete in your hand trying to chop their heads off too.
Oh, totally.
Maybe maybe there's an equalizer. I
That's
hope.
it. And that's it. You just hold the door for someone, and then that gives you enough points so that, the other like crazy shit that you do, just it doesn't rank anymore.
I don't know, but if that really is true, I'd like to catch it before it gets to that point too. But nobody's perfect, you know what I mean? So you just got, it's a daily thing, and that's what you said, like daily. What do you do daily? So at the end of the day, then I kind of, if I have kind of misstepped and gone into places that I didn't want to go action wise, then I try my best to make amends, or at least acknowledge that and kind of figure out how I might not do that.
Yeah. Well, so that you don't carry it with you and
Right.
let it be, because like it's like a thing, you can do something bad, but it doesn't make you personally innately a bad person.
Right.
So it's having that separation, and that's that's something that you're able to, for the most part, do and see.
I mean, I hope so. And then again, like the thing is, the folks that I have got to know in the recovery community over the years, is that you'll always hear somebody say, well, if you see somebody that has what you want, hang around with them. So the guys that I gravitate towards are guys that are really better at that kind of stuff, I think, you know what I mean? So though I'm, whether it's osmosis or whatever it is, I'm just hoping some of that calmness in real life situation rubs off on me, and that, the ability to not be reactive and remain empathetic and all that stuff. Life really, even for people that aren't struggling with drug addiction or alcoholism, that life kind of creates these situations that are like go go go, and then all that other stuff falls by the wayside. And
Mhm.
I think that's dangerous for humanity to be a place for everybody to be in.
Yeah. I mean, everyone can afford more patience and more just cultivating love and like understanding with themselves. We all need that.
No doubt. Yeah. I mean, I need it probably, like I said, there's no 7 years of sobriety, or coming on 7 years of sobriety, doesn't make that perfect. Or even if, I mean, I got so much further to go with that stuff. But it's a daily process. Some days you really are on the beam, and kind of, and some days maybe not so much. So figure
Yeah.
out.
And being okay with that too, like, and that's something like I work on, having like awareness and like just being cool with myself, is like everything is cycles, and there's ups and downs for everything, and it could be within the day, it could be within the month, like how much do you want to zoom out?
Right.
But like there's always going to be like stuff being super awesome and everything's great, and then these moments where it feels like nothing's moving and you're stagnant,
Yeah.
and like, whatever the darkness and lightness of
Yeah.
everything.
Well,
So
that's why they say, right? You have to be kind to yourself and be empathetic with yourself in the process a little bit too, because you everybody tends to beat themselves up a little bit. So allowing myself being aware and allowing myself to be human is pretty important aspect too, you know?
Here's an advert in less than 20 seconds. Did you know that Wellness Provisions offers one-on-one wellness sessions? Yep. So if you're seeking to get healthy and ahead in life, but feeling a little stuck, then book a session and let's get you unstuck. Now back to the interview. What kind of stuff, if there's anything even specific that you see maybe in, the other guys that you hang out with, that you want for yourself, that you're working towards, still striving to really cultivate?
Well, I mean, there's the folks, the guys that I really, really admire in the recovery community that have that sense of calmness and like a wisdom kind of stuff. There's also a serenity that kind of is involved in that. I don't think I've quite got to where I want to be in that aspect. And I've had some, just maintaining sobriety doesn't change life. You know what I mean? So you have to go through ups and downs, like we were talking before the session. There's things that go on that you have to deal with, and that can be difficult, and maybe even more so difficult for me sober than it was before, because I masked and buried stuff, and I didn't really ever learn how to process that kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Yeah, it's definitely harder because you don't really have the option to numb it and run away from it now.
Right. Yeah. And then feelings, especially the feelings that I identified with from a very young age, feelings of sadness and separation from loved ones and that kind of stuff. It's still an underlying thing in all of that. Very, very raw and very visceral. Very when it comes out, it's very, very hard to process.
Yeah.
And even like I said, it's been a couple of weeks since what we talked about. You know what I mean? I can actually now, through one of the many beneficial parts of being sober for years is I can reflect, and now I can see that kind of manifesting itself and turning itself into less grief and more anger kind of thing, and kind of just being okay with that and saying, okay, well, it's okay to feel this. Now maybe if you just don't act on it, and that's key, you know?
Yeah. Do you have sort of anything up your sleeve, like a safety net for if you are in like an emotionally, heightened state that you can fall back on? If it's like, exercising or journaling or anything that helps to reroute.
Yeah, I mean, all of the above, I think so I have like, when I was finally dual diagnosed this last bit of time, because there's some clinical depression that runs in the family, which I certainly probably have. When that stuff starts to take grip, then exercise is one of the first things I need to do to kind of combat that, instead of just kind of lying around on the couch. And then I can really feel it kind of sink in and take more of a grasp. Anybody that has clinical depression knows that the feeling. It's just like it compiles. So yeah, physical activity has been a real boon to my mental health. The safety net is I'm trying now always go back to my breathing and focus on my breathing. Like because I can tell now if it's too much coffee, or if I get whatever it is that's creating some tension in my diaphragm here and making me constrict a little bit. It's usually a warning sign to me, even if it's subtle. To kind of go back and focus on breathing and slow down, and kind of, it doesn't always happen in reactive situations. Sometimes when you're there and the adrenaline starts going, then you have to, it kind of can seem miraculous. A few times in the past couple of years that's happened to me, and I've thought of it as nothing short of a miracle, because it was like an out of body experience. I was doing something that doing and saying and acting a way that was so different than what I want, what my default is, you know?
Right. Yeah. So the growth, it's in you, it's within you. Like all of the work that you've done on yourself, it's there.
Yeah, but like any good actor, I just want it to be there all the time. Like I wish it could be never go, like,
don't we all?
but that just isn't how it works, unfortunately.
No.
It's
I
funny
mean,
because,
yeah, go ahead.
like people think of they always say, well, we are not saints, right? So, but even people that were legit saints, like Mother Teresa, was quoted a lot into the fact, well, that's not what that's how I think of what I do. I'm just a human, I'm just a person like everybody. And she was a legit saint. So.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I always, people who want to be perfect at, how they react in situations, or perfect with when they meditate. I don't want any thoughts coming in my head. Okay, that's never gonna fucking
Yeah,
happen.
of course, yeah.
And I always remind people, like, you will not achieve that unless you are, a monk after many, many, many years, or you're
Yeah,
dead. And even that's debatable,
right.
you
Yeah,
know?
right. Yeah, and it's also if I look at it like that, following that thought is like there's an underlying thing with the addictive side of my personality, perfection and acceptance, right? So because I always want, whether I'm good or not about admitting it, I'm always looking to get acknowledged for how good I am at something, you know what I mean? And whether it's my acknowledgement or somebody else kind of patting me on the back for it or whatever, take that out of the equation and go, okay, well, it's okay to trip and fall every now and then, or like in relation to the music, it's okay to to not play something perfectly every now and again, you know what I mean? You're only human.
Yeah. And it's through the fuck ups and the failures, to whatever degree they are, for like whatever they're happening with, that's where you have the opportunity to refine and to catch something to make it better, or what, like that's literally life. Like
Yeah,
it has to
yeah,
happen.
we really learn, we well, hopefully we learn through that, like in regards to drugs and alcohol, that can be a real tough lesson to learn. That's why people have different levels of stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to still grab this hot pan off the stove without something, and oh, that burns. Oh, but it's kind of fun. Let's do that again, and yeah, it's difficult, but learning isn't. It's like you said, remaining open and learning. That's the date. That's where the 24 daily reminder and the right sizing in that aspect. I feel like when I hear 24 hours in a program, that's the thing for me. Is okay. Well, you did okay yesterday. Now you got
Yeah.
to do that. Now you got to do better today. You got to do that all over and better.
Yeah. But but in that in itself too, remembering that, like, every day, like, every minute is new, but every day for sure is new. And like you have the ability, well, you have the option and hopefully some ability to do something better than you did the day before, have a better perspective. Like, it's a reset button every day.
Yeah. Well, like you said, every minute we have the ability it's just being aware enough, and how, I guess I almost want to say lucky you are at flipping it, because sometimes if you get rolling around, you are welcome. I've heard a lot. You're welcome to keep your misery if you want. You know what I mean? If you hold on to that, you want to do that. It's a lot of things that I've been doing lately is this. They call the law of attraction. Have you heard of that?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So what I've been trying to do is every time I recognize a negative thought or something in whatever it may be, but I look at somebody and I'm passing some, I try and supplant that with something positive, and force the negative thing out, because I want more positive things going on in my life than negative things. So there's a real, that's a real applicable thing that I try and do on a daily.
Yeah. Do you listen to Esther Abraham Hicks?
No, but I'm going to write that down.
What? How the hell are you in law of attraction and you don't do Abraham?
Well, I may, you know what? Because I may have, because there's a bunch of stuff that comes up on like YouTube that I'll find. So there's because I don't watch much TV, and I watch a lot of little clips on YouTube or whatever comes up. So the law of attraction stuff, which was that creative visualization book that I got, Shaki Guan, was all based on that law of attraction stuff. but my concept that my grasp of it has become so much deeper over the years. You know what I mean? And she even says in the book, well, it'll work for material things if that's what you want. You know what I mean? But it, if you can simplify that,
But
okay, I just want serenity. You know what I mean? I want good. I want positivity over negativity in my life.
and that's what it is. And so the more positive feelings and positive thoughts that you have, if it puts you in a higher vibration, your energy's cleaner and more
Yeah,
loving. And
yeah.
so if you think of it like a radio station,
Right,
you are
frequency.
that bandwidth and you are now in line with everything in
Yeah,
that frequency,
right.
instead of like sadness or frustration or anger down here, you're up here and you're tuning into just those things up there now.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I've been. It's a wormhole that I really been chasing a lot. So I'm sure I crossed. Can you tell me that guy's name again?
So it's okay. So, and I'll put a link here for people listening. Her name is Esther Hicks.
Esther Hicks.
She channels a guy or a
I know I've seen it.
yeah, a guy or a collective named Abraham.
Oh,
So when she does her seminar things, she's speaking, on behalf of Abraham.
yeah, I know. I've come across it recently too. I just we were talking about the vibrational side of things, right? So because when the algorithms on YouTube, right, more and more stuff comes up. Once you start, I love it when you start chasing the wormhole, then more and more things.
And that's a great analogy, actually.
Law of attraction.
Yeah.
Law of attraction. Basic law of attraction, right? So the one that I just kind of started chasing was one on Nikolai Tesla's 369,
Okay.
which is obviously can be tuned as a frequency too. He or described it as that 369 kind of whatever. He was a little OCD, they say too, about some stuff and everything, but it kind of is it goes into sacred geometry and kind of geometry that's in nature. And that frequency, basically what he said was, if you want to understand life, the meaning of life or whatever, which it sounds like hard to even fathom, right? It's all mankind has ever tried to do through science and everything.
Yeah.
And it failed miserably. I don't think we're meant to know, but his theory was that 369, the something in the mathematics, in the vibration of that is.
Sorry, I'm still not sure about that.
Oh,
She agrees. You cannot crack the code of
not
life.
sure about it at all.
I love it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, but as far as having a negative thought and then counter it with a positive thought, it's something that Esther Abraham is always, she has a thing, and I do a lot of, for me, it's visual in my head. And so she's like, you have a stick, and at one end is what's not working. It's the negative, it's this sucks, whatever. But for every negative, there is the flip side and the positive. So you have the choice to tune in to that. And,
right.
The more you start to see good and put good out, what comes back? Good.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the difficulty is we process so many thoughts so fast in our heads. So therein comes some meditation and some slowing, right? Because if you can slow and pause instead of react, like you said earlier, you know what I mean? Slow and pause, and then it is nothing short of miraculous when another answer comes to you. Mm-hmm. Like, it's crazy. Mm-hmm. That's not what my head does.
Yeah. And every thought, that's in your head, you don't need to own it. Right. You don't need to keep it with you. You can let it keep going. Like for overthinkers, especially, you don't have to keep every single thought that's like coming into your head.
Of course. But I mean, that there and yeah, I mean, it actually probably is a form of mental illness that we have as humans, right? Like we grab if it's a negative thought, you grab it and you're stuck on it. Now, I'm just a high school dummy, like that did too much acid and barely graduated, but I have an okay level of regular intelligence and communication if I utilize it. I'm certainly no Einstein. But all of those people that were these brilliant minds also had there was probably some personal negative impact kind of stuff for them because they focus so hard on something like that.
Well, that's it. I always feel like someone who is incredibly intelligent, book smart, usually there's a deficit in their social abilities. Like like it's kind of like one or the other. It's rare
Well,
to have.
certainly their mental well-being, you'd have to, I mean, you can't know, but like in recent stuff, I was just talking to somebody the other day about because I'm here in New England, so Tom Brady, right, and he's this phenomenally driven, talented athlete that focused all of his life on doing that. Now, he's been enormously successful and will be written in the history books as the greatest quarterback of all time. Whether you like him or you hate him, the numbers prove it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But there's this, I would almost guarantee that if you took him aside and asked him, there's definitely a negative side of that on his personal life and his mental well-being. There's sacrifices that you could argue, okay, that's what he needed to do to be where he is. But like overall mental well-being, I kind of am comfortable with not having to be the greatest guitar player or the name on everybody's lips 20 years after I'm gone from the planet. I'm just a guy that plays guitar halfway decent and hopefully connects with people. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that level, that kind of success is it's going to come with even like a corporate job that you make a lot of money, just even in like that realm, it comes with limitations on your life and your
You don't
happiness.
need to be the best. I don't need to be the best at anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't need besides the fact that I definitely, even if I succumbed to that thought process, I'm old enough and have skinned my knees and learned that I'm not going to be the best. I'm just not going to be. It's not in my, I'm a real good trier. I mean, I'll try until I fall apart.
Yeah. As long as you're happy in your heart with what you do.
Yeah.
All that matters. It's all that matters.
Agreed.
So do you have a quote that you like a lot?
Yeah, I had several, but I had the one that always comes to me is the old Indian guy in the Outlaw Josie Wales, and he had a phrase that he used a lot in the movie, and it was "endeavor to persevere." And he said it whenever something arose. If there was endeavor to persevere, Josie, endeavor to persevere. So I really love how that sounds. Keep trying.
Yeah. What are some other quotes that you like?
The other one I just wrote down when I saw that we were going to try and prepare some was just simple, and it was just like, "Here comes the sun," because it's so simple, and it's like it has such deep. Just that has such a deep. In other words, wait a while, the sun's coming up again, probably, here it comes again. It's not all as bad as we make it out to be, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Another day and the sun starts and like there's a reset that we were talking about,
Yeah. Yeah. On the back of my neck, I have tattooed "This too shall pass."
Yeah.
Same thing.
Oh, I mean, it's the same vibe, right? You know what I mean? And you never get to see that pass, so you never get to see the sun come up if you don't endeavor to persevere. So you have to do the both,
Yeah. If because I forgot I wanted to ask you this before too. Since you have, whether it's the podcast or books or audiobooks that you listen to regularly, to recommend like a few that are just, I mean, you mentioned the 4 agreements and the create vision, but any others?
Well, I did have some great practical application in life that I got from the PMA effect that John Joseph wrote.
Yes.
That's funny because he's down doing an Ironman in Florida or whatever. And after a few years of reading between and kind of following on social, we don't agree with a lot of things. Sometimes we don't have the same, but the innate knowledge that he has about where he's brought himself in his life has been very, very beneficial to me. So like I allow people to have their own opinions in my world too now. And doesn't mean that I can't learn something from somebody that I just don't buy all of their own personal beliefs, That one is great. I do. I have this one that I listen to occasionally. I don't know if it's just a child in me, but it's the Tao of Pooh, and and
Yeah.
I just love the way the guy's voice sounds, and he's always talking in from Pooh's perspective, and how because Pooh people would perceive as a dumbcoff, but he's really not a dumbcoff. He's really just simplifying life and kind of living in a real serene place. It's not that he's ignorant. He doesn't need it. He's let it go, which is great. I love that one.
That's good. All right. Any others?
Let's see. I do there's a couple that I do that are like ancient kind of philosophical stuff. Like I do the Book of Five Rings, which is a Musashi, and I also will listen to like Sun Tzu's The Art of War sometimes, just because it seems like so ancient and wasn't relevant, and it's based in warfare, but it's really, if you really pull it down, it's the war within us that it's really discussing. You know what I mean? So I like that because it makes me think a little bit about how to apply. I mean, it's just fascinating stuff. It's ancient military knowledge, but it's really not about fighting. It's not about military at all. It's about what's going on in you.
Yeah. Yeah. And how you're responding to, external forces.
There's
Totally.
a ton. I mean, I could go on for days and days. There's so many that I listen. I love that stuff. Taking a little bit, trying to listen to something, and then randomly sometimes it's on shuffle or whatever, and getting kind of thunderstruck by, oh, okay, this is the thought of the day.
Mm-hmm. And will you, like, if you listen to something in the morning, will you kind of make a point to like keep coming back to it, like a mantra sort of for that day to keep it in your head?
I do try and do that, but that usually I do better if I'm actually if I go and attend like a recovery meeting or something, and I'm identifying with people.
Mm-hmm.
Usually for the remainder of the time after that or whatever, that seems to stick a little bit more. The other stuff, it's I don't know if it's just because it's more personal. It's coming from a human
Yeah.
mouth. You know what I mean? But yeah, I always try and apply. It's funny because it's like people use the daily reflections or whatever, and that'll be and people will text those to each other and stuff like that. And it's always good to that's a good way to right size too. You know what I mean? And it's not your first thought, oh, maybe, yeah, that makes sense. Maybe I should follow that. Maybe I should listen to that a little bit.
Yeah, totally. If you had to give someone, this is usually like kind of like the last kind of sum up question here.
Okay.
If you had to give someone tips or advice on how to delay dying, because the tagline for my business is delay dying, because I do wellness coaching, I sell supplements.
Yeah.
So how to delay dying, or in other words, just live happier and healthier. What would you tell someone?
Just from my own standpoint is to realize that I'm not the end all be all of everything, and asking for help, like not being so proud that asking another human being, not just any random human being sometimes, but having some people that might have some expertise in something that you're wondering about, and deferring to them, and not think that you can come up with all the answers yourself. Especially in today's world where it's easy to Wikipedia something, or it's easy to say, oh no, I know this is it because I read this. You know what I mean? Just remaining humble and teachable, and that makes it a lot easier when you don't think you have all the answers. That makes it a lot easier. Life's a lot better.
Yeah. And while I think all of us learn from experience, it's so helpful to still hear from other people what they've been through, what they learned, what they would, how that filters down to what they would pass on to you. Like, it's invaluable.
No doubt.
Yeah. Do you have anything cool coming up, like in the new year, that you want to share on?
Well, it's just I guess the most important thing is the new album that I've been working on for so long. It finally has a release date of the 18th of this month. That's been a large portion of my life and my financial thing. So I'm hoping it's well received. But if it isn't, the artwork is great. So the artwork on the cover was done by this guy, Louis Rosignol. It was nice enough to do that pro bono. And so at least it'll be cool to look at. Maybe it's not so cool to listen to. I don't know.
But there's always going to be people who won't like something or who'll dog it, even though they know fuck all about music themselves. So are you happy with the album?
Absolutely. It's the proudest endeavor. And everybody says that about everybody says, hey, this is the best work of my life, but this undoubtedly is the best work of my life. The folks that were nice enough to lend their talents to it and believe in me to help it come to fruition. And that's not to sound cocky, because I don't know what I've let it go. I don't know what anybody else will think when they hear it. But when I listen to it, which isn't often myself, I know in my heart that I'm happy and couldn't have done it any better than it is.
That's it then. That's what matters. And that is in the music. So, it's got good energy around it.
I hope.
Yeah, I believe it. I thank you for making time and for sharing how you process life and what you've been through and how it's shaping you. And I'm super stoked for this to come out for people to be inspired by, because there's so much to resonate with people through what you've shared. So thank you.
Thank you, Amy. I mean, it really, it made my day. I feel like it was therapeutic,
Yep. That's actually something I hear. A lot of the people after the interviews, they're like, oh my God, it felt like a therapy session. I'm like, you're welcome.
Well, thank you.
It got so dark coming home last night. I was all alone around midnight and I was scared. I didn't know what I should do. And if you were there, you would have been scared too. Please no, said the devil on my right. Drain the blood right out of me. Came to take my life, but then he